Welcome to the Adventure Joe podcast, episode number 2. I am very excited and honored to have Will Burkhart, the founder of BadAss Adventures, located in Phoenix with us today. I have known Will for over 25 years, and we have shared many great adventures together around the world. Most recently, I was in Nepal with Will on a trek to Mount Everest Base Camp. Awesome experience. Thank you.
Yeah.
Not just because we are old friends and have shared many great adventures together, Will is truly one of the best outdoor adventure guides in the industry. His background, training, experience, and having accomplished some of the most demanding adventure racing events in the world, but also mountain climbing expeditions, is a testament to that. Will, welcome to the Adventure Joe podcast, and I'm honored to have you on to share viewers more about yourself, your outdoor adventure background, as well as the several awesome badass adventures trips that they can take with you. Welcome.
Thanks, Joe. It's great to be on your show.
Awesome. You ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it, man. Yeah.
Please share with viewers your origin story, where you were born, raised, attend school, etc.
Yeah, so Joe, I'm from Indiana, and
Go Hoosiers.
Go Hoosiers. Guess
I assume you watched the game.
Yeah, that was an awesome end to just a magical season for those guys and Hoosier Nations. Yeah, I grew up in Indiana and hung out there, through high school. Went to Culver Military Academy and then on to the Naval Academy from there. Served for 5 years in the Marine Corps, did combat tours in the first Gulf War and over in Somalia.
Wow.
And then, after all that traveling, ended up back in Indianapolis, which is where I met you. Gosh, back in 94 maybe?
At least 93, 94.
93, 94. Yeah, at the National Institute for Fitness and Sport. And I'll never forget the day in the locker room.
It's been an adventure. It's been an adventure ever since.
It's been an adventure. And there was that day in the locker room where you showed me that Eco Challenge Utah marketing piece. And you're like, dude, have you ever heard of adventure racing? I'm like, no, what's that? And that one conversation launched me into the adventure racing world and launched us both into it. And that was really my big, leap into the adventure space. It was obviously a competitive arena. My military background obviously lended itself well to it. Yeah, adventure racing, you had a front row seat to that. Took me all over the world, British Columbia, Morocco, New Zealand, some just magnificent adventures. And truly, some of them pretty harrowing adventures, but definitely testing the limits, the limits of my human capabilities. And then, I think like a lot of adventure racers, we kind of phase out of that, the competitive aspects of it, and get into guiding, which is what I did back in the early 2000s.
So to back up for a second, with viewers, a lot of them are not going to really be familiar with adventure racing.
Yeah.
Kind of share, again, but we started this back in 1995, and that was with a gentleman named Mark Burnett.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Burnett started the Eco Challenge expedition races, and he went on and started the Survivor show on CBS and so forth. Back to that locker room story is when I saw that, I thought, oh my gosh, I got to tell you about this. And you went out there in 1995, but share more with viewers because it's not as popular as it used to be, or it's not as visual as it used to be. So kind of share with viewers, what components were in an adventure race, how long they were, the activities, so people get an idea of what you were doing in those events. And again, for viewers, Will competed at the highest levels of that sport and raced with some of the best teams at that time. So go into that for viewers, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so those were definitely the heydays for adventure racing. Yeah, they were on the Discovery Channel. The Eco Challenge was probably the most popular. And in a nutshell, those are expedition style races. So they last anywhere from 7 to 14 days. You've got a co-ed team of either 4 or 5 athletes. It started out with 5, but then it kind of went to a four athlete format. And you could only move as fast as your slowest team member. So you had to work together to optimize your rate of movement.
Which would have been
we were hiking, we were mountain biking, we were riding horses, rappelling, jumaring, whitewater rafts, kayaks, canoes, raced on camels in Morocco. So it was obviously a very grueling sport. The clock never stops. So you have to kind of figure out when you're going to sleep. You have to navigate. Back then, you navigated with map and compass, which tended to be your rate determining element. You could only move as fast as you could navigate. Well, they were an intensely physical experience, but you start to push yourself to the limits of your physical abilities. And then it starts to get more into the other realms, you know, kind of it'll test your spirit. And for me,
Yeah.
that was really where the juice was, is finding that limit and getting into those more kind of expansive states where it's like, okay, like, what am I capable of? You know, what am I capable of in a team environment? How can we all, you know, work together, push beyond our limits, support each other? And, you know, it's funny because it was competitive, but, you know, you're really, it's at some point, it's almost a survival thing. You know, it's like, you know, you're at the mercy of Mother Nature. You know, you get storms, you get high seas, you get all kinds of crazy elements. And you know, and it becomes a race and a test of your own limits. And can you basically overcome, problem solve, figure out, you know, how to beat the challenges and make it to the finish line? I was fortunate to race with some of the best athletes on the planet, race against some of the best athletes on the planet, and we had a heck of a fun time doing it. You know, as long as you can enjoy suffering, you'll enjoy that type of a
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
you know, so those were the big.
What Will's trying to say is, again, you mentioned it, but these, especially these eco challenge races for viewers, is they were literally 10 to 12 days long, nonstop. You sleep when you want, and you just keep moving. So it gives more people more an idea of how grueling those were. And I was in Morocco. I worked on the event. I didn't race. I worked on the event in Morocco and in Patagonia, Argentina. So I saw it from the back end and as raw as it got. And the athletes like Will that were competing, these guys were with his military background, and you had SEAL team guys. Kind of a point there too is to let them know how tough those were. People always expected the SEALs to win those things, and they never did.
Yeah, it's interesting you should bring that up, Joe, because, you know, I mean, I had a military background. You know, obviously SEALs are some of the finest operators in the military, if not the finest. And you know, it's the discipline of the military is very, you know, very, the fact that we've already pushed ourselves in that environment to our limits. The trick with adventure racing is there's no enemy, there's no structure. So you have to be able to think outside the box. And for some military guys, that could be challenging. Like, you know, it's a different kind of a problem solving environment. And so, yeah, it could give some guys trouble. And, you know, and just because we had military background did not equate to necessarily success in that sport.
Yeah, a lot of
It
people
could be
that
a positive.
won. Yeah, a lot of people that won those were guys from triathlon backgrounds or mountain climbing backgrounds. It was really interesting to see it again from my end. How that all kind of unfolded, but amazing
Yeah.
experience for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you
So
know,
let
as you know, Joe, those were the big races. You know, there were also shorter races, right? Weekend type races, you know, in, year 2000, some buddies of mine and I, you know, brought that sport into the urban arena. And we founded really the first urban adventure race ever, ever put together, the Wild Onion. Did that in Chicago, did it with you down in Indianapolis, did it out in New York.
yeah,
And yeah, so that was fun to bring it to an urban environment, stair climbing buildings, rappelling off buildings, and navigating around the city on scooters and inline skates and mountain bikes and all that. So that was a
it
blast
would be
too.
kind of interesting to see if we'd be able to pull something like that off today.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit different environment. You know, as I said, you know, it started in Chicago, and the main reason back then is one of my co-founders that I met was a personal friend of Mayor Rich Daley.
Yeah,
So, you know, we never pulled a permit for that city. We had the mayor's backing, and he basically like do whatever you want in our city. And we basically did. You know, we were in tunnels underneath it. We were, rappelling and ziplining between buildings, and it was a blast. Yeah, in today's environment, it might be a little tricky.
for 24 hours nonstop.
You know, we targeted the longer race for 24 hours, gave people 36 hours to do it. We generally had co-ed teams of 3 for that, so they were a little bit smaller. And then we had our shorter race, our little 8 to 12-hour race, which we called the Wild Scallion. And that was a little more accessible to people because there's a little less equipment, a little less intense. Yeah, had our ESPN special in 2000. They ended
Yeah,
up and filmed the race, and yeah, it was. Oh, those are great memories. You know, it seems
they
like a
really
lifetime
were,
ago. Yeah,
doesn't it? Yeah. And
yeah,
then I just mentioned we brought to Indianapolis, and I was lucky enough where Will tapped me to help organize that one. And kind of the same with Chicago. It was amazing. People that aren't aware, they're viewers, right? It's kind of the same with Chicago. We had complete access to Indianapolis. like Eagle Creek Park. People don't realize or know that when we brought that 24-hour wild onion to Indianapolis, Eagle Creek Park is shut down at dawn. We had athletes in the woods all night long orienteering. So that was kind of cool as well. So,
Yeah.
and repelled off downtown Emmis building and so forth. I got to share kind of a funny story. You may not remember, but when you took the race to New York City, we went to New York City and did the race there. So for viewers, that race in New York City was not too long after the 9/11 attacks. Okay. So,
A year later.
of course, a year later. All right. So for viewers, you can kind of imagine the level of security and so forth. So, one of my jobs was to help drive stuff around and get stuff to different checkpoints and so forth. So, Will's like, hey, Joe, go get these scooters over to this checkpoint. Well, the funny thing is here I am in a white box truck driving through Manhattan and I get stopped. So, that was interesting. That was interesting experience. You know what? I'm really trying to think how I did. I think I may have had a permit. I think, because the contacts there with New York City, and I had a permit, but the NYPD cops, they didn't know, a lot of them didn't know about the race. And New York City's big. They're like, there's a 24-hour race going on here. And, they thought I was lying about it. Like, no, we really are. And here's a permit. So luckily, one of the NYPD guys was pretty cool. And he's like, oh, that's cool. He's like, just get out of here. So,
yeah.
And I remember made it to that checkpoint just in time for the athletes were there to start on their multi-mile scooter leg. So anyway,
that was an amazing race through all 5 boroughs of New York City. Yeah, that was stair
That was
climbing
cool.
the Empire State Building it was a blast.
Well, and also you got the athletes also, remember they ziplined off the naval ship there?
Yeah, they ziplined from that over to, that was the finish. Yep. I think the USS Intrepid or something museum or whatever that aircraft stock there. Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
It was.
So let's move on. But I wanted to give people kind of the background of the adventure racing sport and kind of where you got started there. And then, of course, continued on. I mean, obviously, it's till today. So kind of share with viewers, I know, you were a professional guide with some of the large outdoor companies for a while, like REI Outdoors and others. But it was kind of time for you to start your own, and BadAss Adventures was born. Share with viewers, BadAss Adventure, the trips you lead, the trips they can take. Of course, just went to Nepal with you to Everest Base Camp treks.
Yeah.
I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, a lot of former adventure racers will get into outdoor wilderness guiding and whatnot. And I guided for Arizona Outback Adventures, REI, National Geographic Adventure, Austin Adventures, Mountain Subic Travel. So a number of the big companies. And over the course of my guiding with them, you build up the skills and you build relationships with folks. And, one thing about working for the bigger companies is they really don't pay you much. So I'm like, okay, I think I can do this on my own and get paid a little bit better at least. And, be able to make a living off of it. So just over time built a big enough Rolodex of word of mouth business and started putting together my own trips, called the company BadAss Adventures, and started to kind of get a niche in the Southwest, in particular, the Grand Canyon, Southern Utah, where there's 5 national parks, Joshua Tree in Southern California, get up into Colorado and in the Chicago Basin area outside of Durango, and just all over Colorado, up into Montana and Glacier. So just pretty much wherever clients wanted to go, I designed trips for them. And my biggest destination and trip is probably the Grand Canyon. The rim to rim in the Grand Canyon is kind of a bucket list item for most hikers who are serious. And I'm one of the few companies out there that will guide folks across in a single day, which is a challenge. You're covering 22 to 24 miles, dropping about a mile into the earth, climbing out a little over a mile. And it can help, obviously, to have somebody who's done it more times than I can count to help people with that. Because invariably, the wheels will fall off toward the end, and it's nice to have a bit of a safety net. And then, gosh, it's probably been 6 years or so, started to get more into the international realm. Did some guiding for a friend's company down in Argentina on Aconcagua, was able to summit that mountain 3 times. Been to Tanzania, have trips to Tanzania for Kilimanjaro, Nepal, Everest Base Camp, and some trips over there, which you were, just a member of my latest trip there. So yeah, getting into some select international destinations. But I love the outdoors, Joe. It's my happy place. And the only thing I love more than the outdoors is taking people out into the wilderness and, allowing them to really push their limits and in a safe, good way, and be able to just feel the awe, the majesty of Mother Nature. With
Absolutely.
your background, even all the mountains you've climbed, you get over into the Himalaya, where you're hiking through valleys that are 14, 15,000 feet, looking up at mountains that are 20, 25, damn near 30,000 feet with Everest. And the scale is just otherworldly, and
It really is.
it's really fun to watch people in that environment just really take it all in, get challenged, and come out really, profoundly impacted in positive ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, as you know, I mean, the great outdoors was always an outlet for me,
Hmm.
for different reasons. And you mentioned some of the mountain climbing and why I recommend Will. Again, not because he's been a personal friend for so many years. I respect Will and look up to Will for a lot of reasons. But, some of my own endeavors, I did go on a quest to climb the 7 summits, the highest mountain on each continent, and it was on 6 of them. And at that time, I had some sponsorship and was doing it for a cause and a reason. So I was able to hire, quote, the best at that time. Some of the guide companies out there, some of the big ones, these guys had, already summited Mount Everest multiple times and summited McKinley multiple times. So I had experience with being able to, hire those people. So, I mean, with that said, I mean, in all sincerity, Will's at that level and beyond. I mean, he really is. So for anyone that is really looking for a great adventure, a challenge, and others, Will's background that he mentioned from the Naval Academy, going and other stuff, you can't have a better leader. I mean, he'll get you there and back. So anyway, yeah, again, can't recommend him enough, and BadAss Adventures. Anything else, Will?
Joe, I'm just looking forward to this year's adventures. We're going to go back to Nepal in September, mid-September, at Everest Base Camp. I think you're going to be joining me on a trip that's near and dear to my heart, which is we're going to summit or attempt to summit Kilimanjaro on Veterans Day to kind of raise awareness around veterans issues. We're going to take vets over there, vet supporters over there. It's been, about 10 years since I've done that. My first high altitude mountaineering experience was to summit Kilimanjaro on Veterans Day. And
Oh, was it really?
yeah, I was a client back then. I mean, I say
Okay.
high altitude, higher than 14,000 feet. So yeah, that was my introduction to high altitude mountaineering. So this trip this year is, it's near and dear to my heart. I'm looking forward to having you on that trip, and
And people
a
can
lot of
join
the
that
folks.
trip. And people can join that trip if they want to.
Yeah,
If they want to tackle a big peak, they don't
yeah,
have to be a veteran. They
yeah,
can join that trip and have a chance to not only see Africa, but have a chance to climb a big mountain.
yeah.
I successfully climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in 2005 and reached the summit. And I can tell you, don't underestimate that mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, it's definitely, people think it's just as well walk in the park, but only about 60% of the people actually summit the Kilimanjaro. I think that the summit rate's only just over 60%. The main reason for that is a lot of companies and a lot of folks, they're a little too budget conscious. So they try to summit it in 5 days, and it's just not quite enough time to acclimate. And we do the trip in 7 days. I've got 100% success rate on that mountain, getting people up it and down it. So the extra days definitely help. Obviously being in shape, and being in peak physical shape. A good buddy of mine, Marcus Shapiro, who I think would be a good person for you to have on your show, Joe. He has a company called Fit for Trips. He puts training programs together,
That'd be great.
specifically geared for like Kilimanjaro, Everest Base Camp, rim to rim, a Grand Canyon. But to your point, you don't want to underestimate it. It's a beautiful mountain when you're in shape. It's like climbing a different mountain every day. You start in the rainforest and you end on a Arctic glacier in Africa, in the roof of
Yeah, right.
Africa. It's beautiful. And the people are amazing. Well, the guys I work with over there have it really dialed in. They're just a top crew of guys I've been working with for years, and all
And it's
handpicked.
not to interrupt,
Go
but it's
ahead.
not just it's this trip that we're currently talking about. and viewers that are following, it's not just climbing and hopefully get to the summit of Kilimanjaro, but there's a component of the trip too where after that, safari, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We've
Okay.
got in our base package, we've got a single day safari the day after we get off the mountain for folks who need, don't have 2 weeks or more to be over there. They only have like 10 days.
On the
Yeah,
Serengeti?
you get, it's in a park. Yeah. Just near, in Tanzania. It's a smaller park, but it's amazing. They've got all the wildlife there. For people who have more time, you could do a 3 to 5 day safari, which gets out in the Serengeti. And then the big trip ends with a couple, 3 days, 3 nights in Zanzibar, the Spice Island, which is kind of a nice beach vacation to just decompress and see an interesting piece of culture that island has to offer. Yeah, it's
When
it's
I
an
was over in
amazing
Africa,
trip.
well, yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely. If you talk about another bucket list, I mean, not just going to Nepal and trekking to Everest Base Camp and seeing that amazing culture and place, but Africa and Kilimanjaro is it's another bucket list for sure. But when I went in 2005, I did a couple teammates that did go on to Zanzibar. I did not. We did the safari after the climb on Serengeti, and then I had to get home. So if I'm able to hopefully make that trip in November, I definitely like to get down and see Zanzibar for sure.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah,
But
kind of
yeah,
bad.
it's amazing.
Oh yeah. I think one of the things that I liked more about mountaineering or climbing is, and you kind of touched on it about the fitness level and be prepared, so forth, is what I saw so many times though too is when I went to Kilimanjaro in 2005, and I think I may have told you the story. We had a guy on our team that his two sports was he was an ultra marathoner, he was an ultra runner and a climber. And maybe like 2 weeks before we left for Africa and Kilimanjaro, and because I know you did this event as well, but he had did that Western States 100 ultra marathon, 100-mile ultra marathon in California. Will's done it, and so you can tell how brutal it is. But what's interesting was when we got above 15,000, because Kilimanjaro is a little over 19,000. So we thought, when we met him and got to talking, we thought, this guy's going to run up Kilimanjaro, right? He's going to smoke us. Well, what's interesting about that experience was when we got to 16, and we thought, he's going to be the best cardio shape person on our team. I thought that.
Yeah.
And he didn't make it. At 16,000, he was done. He threw in the towel. So that's it's an equalizer for sure because the altitude and other stuff. I mean, if you really want to test yourself, all the different aspects, yes, the fitness part, some mental toughness part, grit, climb a mountain over 14,000 feet for sure.
Yeah, you'll definitely learn some things about yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a crazy story, Joe, because it doesn't matter how fit you are. Altitude affects people differently. And on as many mountains as I've climbed, it was on Kilimanjaro a few years ago that just after I made it to the summit on the way down, I suffered a mild case of cerebral edema and got some double vision. And I was able to get down safely without any problem. And,
That's
once I got to lower
stuff.
altitude, got to lower altitude, it abated. But yeah, you just never know. But you can have all the experience in the world. You can be the fittest person on the planet. But, altitude related sickness, it can get anybody, even the most experienced mountaineer. Yeah, it's something, and again, that's why we take 7 days, because largely you can, manage those, those dangers, so to speak. But yeah, it's still, you have to respect it. And the mountain always has the final.
Absolutely. You mentioned Aconcagua in South America that you successfully summited. I was on that mountain twice, and first time, no one summited. We had 8 people on our team. No one summited. We got around 20,000 feet. Pulse oxes were all dropping, and at that time, they had the guides had to radio down to doctors at base camp, and they made us all turn around. I went back for a second attempt, and I got to 21,700 feet on Aconcagua, and my retina popped. So you just don't know.
Yeah,
so
it's no joke. Yeah, Aconcagua, it's in a whole nother league. Yeah. It's a tough mountain.
So
I'm sure it tried to blow you off a few times. It's tried to blow me off a few times as well.
Oh yeah, there's actually an old YouTube video that's still out there that I'm in, and we coming down from the 21,700 foot part that you're aware of. We had hurricane force winds that were literally, we thought they were trying to kill us. If you've never been in those kind of winds at that altitude, I mean, it's a pucker factor for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's still a long way to go to get down, and those winds didn't stop. Anyway, I'm going to do another episode later from our experience in Antarctica, but we had those kind of winds in Antarctica and some other experiences down there that I'm going to share on an episode later, but that's for another time.
It's interesting, that story you told about, getting blown around on Aconcagua, Joe, because the last time I was summited that mountain was in 2020, just before COVID. And we knew we were getting weather coming in the night after we summited. So typically on that mountain, you go to high camp, you summit, you come back to high camp, you spend the night, and then the next day you go back down to base camp. Well, we knew that some nasty weather was coming in that night. So on summit day, we summited, we came back to high camp, but instead of spending the night at high camp, we went all the way back down to base camp. So that was a long day. You're basically going from, nearly 23,000 feet to 13,500 feet in a day after the summit. Even at base camp, like, the weather was bad. And we talked to some guys who didn't do that. They stayed up at high camp, and they were so shell shocked. I mean, it was carnage up there. Tents were just getting shredded. People were freaking out. And so it's serious stuff. But, again, you have to have that level of fitness, because, it's like, you never know when you have to get off the mountain. And I say, it's like, if weather rolls in, you want to be as low as you can be. And you have to be smart about it. We made a smart call and got everybody down safely. And some other folks didn't make the same choice, and they paid for it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, in that vein, my second trip to Aconcagua, when we got to the altitude we were notified by some climbers that were coming down that there was a deceased climber on the summit. Mm-hmm. And that if we make it, they were asking you, would you be willing to help bring the dead body down?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's. So back again, to viewers, if you are looking for an awesome trip, they're domestic, stateside, or international, I highly recommend my friend Will Burkhart and BadAss Adventures. You can't go wrong. Again, I had the opportunity to climb and travel with some of the best and biggest, and he puts a lot of them to shame. He just really does. So, one thing I want to tease, right? Something I want to tease that something else that Will does. He mentioned some of his background, his combat experience, but something that Will does, and I think a lot of people are seeing more and more, mental health. A lot of people think that a lot of the vets are robots and they don't have issues. They do, and one thing he's doing is psychedelics. So I'll let you touch on that. I don't want to go too deep because I like to do another episode totally on that. All right.
Yeah.
Because that's an episode in itself.
Yeah, it is.
But for viewers that are going to watch this and follow, I have not fully jumped into it myself yet, but I know a lot that have, and there's been a lot of men, women, PTSD, and so forth that have, and they share remarkable stories of healing from it. But if you want to tease that a little bit, but not go too deep, because I want to do a podcast just on that.
Yeah.
It is fascinating.
It's definitely worth a whole podcast, Joe. It's been fascinating. Gosh, the last 8 years or so, I've been in that world, the psychedelic world. And you can have amazing adventures, in some of the remotest parts of the world. And those are one type of adventure. And, in my psychedelic space that I have here in my home, you can have some even more profound adventures. And ones that can be healing, ones that can just be expansive. It's basically what you bring to it. It's extremely powerful. Highly recommend to people who, if they're curious about it and they really want to know themselves and recover from whatever it is they may have suffered, but just really become the best version of themselves that they can be. So yeah, I look forward to that conversation, Joe.
Yeah, we'll definitely schedule that and let you go much deeper into that. But I kind of wanted to let people know that some of the things and endeavors you do, that's definitely interesting stuff. Absolutely.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah.
So with that said, Will, thank you so much.
Joe?
Absolutely. Yeah. Adventures.com. BadAss.
Adventures.
BadAss-adventures.com. Okay. I'll put it in the comments too so we can check out, the BadAss Adventures website and all the different trips. But again, Will, thanks a lot. Look forward to seeing you.
Yeah.
Seeing you soon, and hopefully see you maybe in September back to Nepal, and hopefully on Kilimanjaro for sure.
That'd be awesome, man.
It's on the
Good
list.
deal. Yep.
So,
Hey, baby.
all right.
Adventure awaits. Adventure awaits. Just say yes.
There you go. Love it.
Say yes to adventure. Yeah. Cool.
Thanks, Will.
brother.
Have
Yeah.
a great day. Venture
You
Joe
too.
podcast signing off.